Alright, for this past week, I've challenged myself to do the unthinkable. I ditched my premium polished iPhone 12 mini and my $1,300 Galaxy S22 Ultra for a $40 burner phone I got at Walmart. So here's what I learned. And I know, other people have done similar challenges to this, like TechSmart, but his was only for 24 hours, so it really doesn't count. Now my challenge started on Thursday, April 28th, which I'd kind of consider day 0. That was when I bought and set up the phone, so I'd be ready to start this week-long challenge the next day. The goal in walking into Walmart that day was to pick up a phone for under $50 and a plan for that phone for under $20. So I've narrowed down my selection to these two options here. Both of these are $40. So we got the Boost Mobile TCL 20XE and then the Metro by T-Mobile Revel 5. So I'm gonna pick one of these and get going. So I ended up going for the TCL on Boost Mobile because Boost Mobile has a service plan under $20 and Metro doesn't. So I think it's also going to be a better overall phone. But yeah, let's get to testing it. Now, I've always been under the impression that the only people who bought these ultra cheap phones are drug dealers making sketchy transactions that can't be traced to their main phones, or children using their allowance money to buy something that can play the hottest new mobile games like Torque Race 3D, a game that actually exists. But after seeing the massive prepaid selection Walmart had, it's very clear that there is a larger market for these dirt cheap handsets. I ended up going for the TCL 20XE, a phone locked to Boost Mobile, and it ticked both of the budget boxes, with the phone being $40, $10 under budget for the phone, and the plan being $15, $5 under the plan budget. This $15 plan came with 2 gigs of data, and I mean, I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty cheap plan, but is it actually a good option? For most people, probably no. Even if you're a very conservative user of your phone, the average person will likely use 5 to 8 gigs of data, so if you get 2 gigs, you'll still run out in a snap. The only reason I chose this plan, apart from budgetary reasons, is because I'd only be using this phone and plan for a week, so 2 gigs should last me for 7 days. So now I'm going to show you the clip where I unbox, activate, and set up the phone. Alright, we got our cheap phone here. This is the TCL 20XE. I picked this out at Walmart for $40. It's got a 6.52-inch HD Plus display with NXT Vision or Next Vision. 5,000 mAh battery, that's really good for a phone this cheap. 32 gigs of storage, 3 gigs of RAM, a 13 megapixel triple camera, and a 5 megapixel front camera, 2 gigahertz octa-core processor, Android, and 4G LTE. There we go. We're in. Got the TCL 20XE. Alright, not bad. Got the phone up top, cable, and then we got our charger. Oh, it's got some heft to it. It's got, you know, that flagship type of heft to it. Definitely more than I expect for $40. We got our triple camera. Oh. Here we go. TCL, powered by Android. Alright, so I just activated the Boost Mobile service. I went with their 2 gig $15 month plan because I'm just using this phone for a week and 2 gigs is probably all I'll need. Alright, so I see 4G LTE up in the status bar. These haptics are not very good though. Like, it's a very subtle vibration, but it's not like a satisfying vibration. It's just kind of a meh average vibration. All right, now we got the fingerprint scanner set up. I'm actually really excited for this because I was kind of excited to see that this phone had a fingerprint scanner. No. There we are. All right, well, so far, looks pretty good. Just looks like we're in Android. It looks like stock Android as well. Now, one thing I've heard about a lot of these budget phones, and I've even experienced it myself, is as soon as you log into your Google account, then it's gonna like completely ruin it, and like they're gonna install a whole bunch of bloatware apps and stuff on here. It actually looks clean. Like, it actually looks like a clean Android phone, which is the basic apps included. Alright, yeah, I'm just gonna set up the phone for a little bit and log in all my accounts and set up all the apps to my likings. Now, at this point, I had no idea what I was getting myself into, but I'd sure get to know the phone as I started using it on Friday, the day the challenge starts. For this challenge, I'm banning myself for all use of other phones that I own that are far better quality, except for recording video footage relating to this challenge. So for example, if I need to record something about this phone, I will allow myself to use my iPhone to get the video, but do nothing else with it. I added the default Notes app from the TCL phone to my home screen, so at any time I could jot down observations from my phone usage, any compromises I noticed going down to a budget phone, and even the surprising benefits of cheap phones that I didn't expect, which I'll get into later. So now that all my explanations are over, let's actually get into my observations from this challenge. At the end of each day, I'll record a recap of the day on the phone, telling you what I thought and any observations, and I'll also throw in some commentary from current day me just so you can get another perspective after the challenge has been done. I didn't know what to expect from day 1 of this challenge, but I knew I wasn't looking forward to it. I immediately noticed how cheap it felt, how the display had garbage viewing angles, and how the whole phone felt like a toy with this plastic construction. But I was also very delighted that I could access all my apps and message people and jot down some notes and watch some YouTube videos, admittedly at extremely low resolution. It's this sort of magical sense you can get such a phone for a dirt cheap price and still do a lot of the things you normally do with a normal phone. So with both good and bad, let's see what I had to say after day 1 of using this phone for the challenge. Alright, this is the day 1 recap of using the TCL 20XE as my main phone, so all the video and audio you're seeing for this recap I recorded with that phone's front camera, so let me know how it looks and sounds. But I've got a lot of very interesting things I didn't expect to say, including some good things and definitely some bad things, so I'll get into all of it. So first thing I was actually really surprised to see that I'm very excited about, very happy about, is that there's actually no bloatware in the phone. So you just get your system apps and your Google apps. That's what I found when I turned on the phone on day 0 and started everything out. It was actually a very welcome surprise, and I'm very glad that there was no bloatware, because that really made the experience feel cohesive as opposed to all bloated and cheap and stuff, even if the phone was actually really cheap. The fingerprint scanner on the back is a pretty good addition, but 4 times out of 5 you'll definitely miss it, and like only part of your finger will get to it, so then it'll lock you out of using the fingerprint scanner, so you'll have to put in your passcode anyway. Kind of annoying because it's almost flush with the back, so you kind of can't tell where it is, which is kind of inconvenient. I wish it was at least a little bit more inside the phone compared to just flush with the rest of the phone. Also, the notification sound with this phone is pretty pleasant. Here, have a listen for yourself. But of course, for a phone this cheap, there are definitely some negatives. First off, whenever I try to watch YouTube videos, it lags like a lot. Sometimes they straight up just won't load, and other times they'll lag, they'll load, they'll buffer a lot, they'll default to their lowest resolution. Really poor video watching experience for sure. And considering that watching YouTube videos is one of the biggest things I use my phone for, it's gonna be pretty tough. Another thing I really didn't expect was having micro SD card expansion. So you can actually put in a micro SD card in here, so even though this phone only has 32 gigs of storage, you can expand it to a lot of storage to store all your photos, videos, apps, games, data, all that. And because it's an SD card, it can be moved over to another device, so it's super convenient. So yeah, those are my notes for day 1. I'll see you at day 2. So day 1 was quite a cutoff for me because I completely stopped using my iPhone and S22 Ultra cold turkey, so it was quite a bit of a cutoff. I was experiencing the withdrawal symptoms of not having a good quality OLED screen, a camera system I could rely on, Wi-Fi and data speeds I could be in shock at, and a fast processor. It was all gone in place of cheap hardware I felt the burden of using. So that was pretty much day 1 summed up, but I have even more observations for day 2. Alright, well, day 2 with this phone, the TCL20XC, has just wrapped up, so here's my day 2 recap. One major thing this phone does have going for it that I've noticed from today and yesterday was that this phone has exceptional battery life. It has a massive monster 5000 mAh battery, which would be the same amount of juice as a Galaxy S22 Ultra, this $1,300 flagship phone. And if I'd have to guess, this phone is probably getting way better endurance than the S22 Ultra, because the battery inside this cheap phone is fueling super underpowered hardware. And as I said with yesterday's recap, the keyboard here and the haptics are just absolute garbage, which I mean, you would expect that at this price, but it's just these subtle micro vibrations that just don't feel right, and they're slightly delayed as you press a key. It's an awful typing experience. But yeah, that's my day 2 recap. I'll see you on day 3. Now at this point, after 2 days of using the phone, I did start to get used to its weird quirks. Using wired earphones instead of my AirPods Pro that this phone just wouldn't connect to, expecting YouTube videos to be crap quality, and coming to accept that I just can't take a good photo with this camera, no matter how hard I tried. So instead of making recaps for days 3 and 4, I decided to just combine both. Alright, we're back with another recap from me using the TCL20XC as my main phone. This is a combination of days 3 and 4, because I didn't have a whole lot going on either day, so I just figured I'd combine both of them. But this would be for Sunday, May 1st, and today, May 2nd. Now, when using this phone, I kind of got the underlying message throughout all my usage of it that yeah, it kind of does the job. It'll watch YouTube videos, it'll take pictures, it'll take videos and all that. It does the job, but it does that job very poorly. Display quality is rough, camera quality is rough, the whole thing's made of plastic. Yes, this is definitely the compromise you expect for this price, but coming down from an iPhone and an S22 Ultra, it definitely felt like a massive compromise. But one area I noticed this a whole lot is viewing angles of the display. The display viewing angles on this phone, they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad even for an LCD, which this has. And another thing I noticed when using this phone is Wi-Fi speeds on it were actually a lot slower. So I actually recorded a comparison with my S22 Ultra of this and the iPhone next to each other with speed tests done at separate times, both on the same Wi-Fi. And while the iPhone was getting about 400 megabits per second down and about 300 up, this phone was getting about 40 to 50 megabits per second down and like 100 up, which means that this phone definitely has a worse Wi-Fi modem, and it's kind of a compromise they don't really tell you about cheap phones. And finally, on day 3, I finally got a hang of the fingerprint scanner. It did feel very flush with the back still, but I finally got adjusted to where it was placed and what part of my finger to specifically put it on. So I finally got used to the fingerprint scanner, and now it's actually pretty convenient. So that was my recap for days 3 and 4. See you on day 5. Alright, welcome back to another recap. This is the combination of days 5 and 6, just because there wasn't a whole lot going on yesterday or today, so I figured I'd just combine both days as to not waste your time. So yesterday, day 5, I made my video about that horrible phone bill payment scam. So I used this phone to try to call the scammers, and the call failed. And I also use this phone for other parts of it, like try to send the email, and also I'm reading the script during the video. So normally I hold my S22 Ultra or my iPad mini when I do that, but this time I used this phone instead because I had to, and it worked out well. Google Docs runs fine on this phone, so that's nice to know. And another thing I found really inconvenient about this phone, among all the things I noticed this week, is that the headphone jack is on the top, which makes it very inconvenient to use my wired earphones, because again, my AirPods wouldn't connect. and just kind of more uncomfortable to hold than if the headphone jack was at the bottom, like most other phones that have a headphone jack. But that is still a minor inconvenience overall, and that's pretty much it from both days 5 and 6, so I guess I'll use this opportunity to tell you to subscribe and turn on notifications if you haven't already. And with that, I'll see you on day 7, which is tomorrow, and the final day of this challenge, before I can return to using my iPhone S22 Ultra and other phones. It was certainly an interesting experience actually using this phone for an actual video I made on this channel, and once again I am still allowing myself to use my iPhone to film videos for the channel, but it was quite an interesting experience nonetheless. But now it's time for day 7. The final verdict. The conclusion of this moderately difficult challenge. See, this is a full Android phone. It has Google services, the Play Store, and the apps I want to use, but it all runs terribly on the hardware it has. This phone stutters and skips beats all day. YouTube videos are in 144p, and they're simply unwatchable. And even with a 16 megapixel camera, this phone still manages to disappoint, and the whole Next Vision thing is purely marketing crap. The display is the most mediocre, unappealing commodity panel a company can buy to put in a phone. All these things slow down my workflow using my phone, so just in general, I found myself using my phone a lot less, since this is really only about 20% as useful as my iPhone. And it's such a shame because the software has so much potential. I quite appreciate how customizable and clean it is, but the processor is just so slow that I just don't want to bother getting a launcher I prefer or applying a more aesthetically pleasing icon pack. So that's the rundown of the $40 phone, but there is one more piece to this very weird puzzle. This phone isn't actually $40. Well, it kind of is, but the truth is, this particular model, the TCL20XE, is actually more of a $100 phone. The reason I paid $40 is that this phone is locked to Boost Mobile, and when I bought it at Walmart, I did also have to buy a service plan with it. Now this is different from a typical carrier contract, because it is still prepaid, but the phone is locked to Boost, so you can only use Boost service with it. And that's really where the money is made. Essentially, Boost Mobile buys these phones from TCL, locks them to their network, and makes a loss selling the phones, but they make their money back by selling the customer's phone service. And yeah, if I were going to buy a device fully outright, $40 unlocked, it would be straight up unbearable. This phone, if it was unlocked, would cost about $100. But even then, it's still, as they say in the automotive industry, a lemon. So that's it for this challenge. If you enjoyed it, definitely be sure to let me know by smashing that like button, and also be sure to subscribe down below with notifications on to never miss my next video. But with that, I'm Max. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Where should I go?